Hello and welcome to the LCTV News sponsored by Columbia Insurance. I'm Mukala Kabongo. In this edition of the LCTV News, Lynn election results, Union Hospital emergency room closed, Sacred Heart Harvest Festival, sit down with Fran Smith, and more. Tuesday was election day in the city of Lynn, and all incumbents were re-elected. The race for Ward 6 Council, just as the preliminary, was another nail-biter between Fred Hogan and Cinda Don. Hogan defeated Don as he received 718 votes to Don's 648 votes. Another race that was highly contested was the race for Ward 5 Councilor between Diana Chakutis and Marvin Hippolyte. Chakutis edged out Hippolyte as she received 573 votes to Hippolyte's 519 votes. In the Ward 3 race, City Council President Darren Sear won in a landslide as he defeated George Memeteus with 977 votes to Memeteus' 559 votes. In Ward 1, Wayne Losey defeated William O'Shea by 296 votes. Losey received 1,579 votes to O'Shea's 1,283 votes. Rick Staubard went unopposed in Ward 2. The race for Ward 4 Councilor saw Richard Colucci defeat Natasha Meji Madri 471 to 301. And in Ward 7, Jay Walsh won in a landslide over Alexis Reynoso by 744 votes. Walsh received 1,059 votes to Reynoso's 315 votes. In the Council at Large race, Buzzy Barton led all votes with 5,426. Hong Net received 5,043 votes. Brian LaPierre received 4,974, and Brian Fields received 4,761 votes. Council at Large challengers Jose Encarnacion, Lenin Pena, and Joe Hippolyte put together a strong campaign but fell short. Encarnacion received 2,409 votes, Pena received 1,966 votes, and Hippolyte received 1,407 votes. In the race for school committee, all 6 incumbents were re-elected as well. Donna Capolo, who is the school committee vice chair, received 5,377 votes, which topped the ticket. Lorraine Gately received 4,835 votes. John Ford received 4,779 votes. Jared Nicholson received 4,428 votes. Michael Satterwright received 4,077 votes, and Brian Castellanos received 4,056 votes. On Sunday, October 3rd, Lynn's Union Hospital emergency room closed for good. With the closure of Union Hospital's ER, all emergency services will now be directed to the brand new and expanded emergency department at Salem Hospital. Lynn residents are encouraged by North Shore Medical Center who are in need of emergency services to either go to Salem Hospital, or those with non-emergency needs should visit Union Hospital's Urgent Care Center. The Urgent Care Center will remain open until May 2020, when the medical village, which is currently under construction, is set to open. Galleries at LynnArts announced its opening receptions for its Member Show on November 15th. Member Show is a retrospective of the year that Galleries at LynnArts has had. Guests will get a look at previous shows exhibited at the gallery, as well as preview of Rubbish to Runway and Fiber Arts Reused Materials show, which will be the first shows of 2020. The exhibit on November 15th will go on from 5:30 p.m. until 8 p.m. at LynnArts. Now for the police update. Thursday afternoon, 2 men were shot in a Lewis Street barbershop. Around 1 p.m., Lynn Police responded to a call about the shooting. One witness told police that she witnessed a man leave the barbershop, then proceeded to fire 4 shots through the barbershop door before taking off on foot. The 2 victims, one of which was the owner of the barbershop, suffered a head injury, which was determined that it was not from a direct gunshot wound. The owner of the barbershop was taken to Mass General Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The second victim was taken to Salem Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries after being grazed in his upper body by a bullet. This according to Lieutenant Michael Kimmick. No arrests have been made, and the incident remains under investigation. On Tuesday evening, a Lynn man was shot 3 times inside an apartment building on Joyce Street. According to Lieutenant Michael Kimmick, after 5 p.m., Lynn Police responded to a call on 8 Joyce Street where they found a man in the hallway with gunshot wounds to his abdomen, hip, and buttocks. The man, who is yet to be identified, was taken to Massachusetts General Hospital with serious injuries. No arrests have yet been made, and the incident remains under investigation. A police chase on Wednesday led to a car accident on Joyce Street. Around 7 p.m., a routine traffic stop turned into a police chase after the female driver backed up and almost struck officers. The driver struck the police cruiser and drove away before crashing into another vehicle on the corner of Essex and Chatham Streets, according to Lieutenant Michael Kimmick. A foot chase ensued with the passenger, who was quickly apprehended and taken into custody. The driver was also taken into custody. Firearm and ammunition was recovered at the scene. Both suspects are facing several charges and will be arraigned in Lynn District Court. On this week's Community Connector, we highlight the annual Sacred Heart Harvest Festival at Sacred Heart Parish Hall. Here is this week's Community Connector.
We hold it every year here at Sacred Heart. It's one of the major fundraisers for the parish.
The whole table, the whole fair.
The whole fair, but it's all donated.
All the parishioners donate stuff.
All these baskets, and
local businesses donate for the silent auction. We have Lancelot Janital, they donate to us, and who else?
Dot World. A lot of
Coca Key, a lot of local businesses.
A lot of local businesses, very helpful. It's a very wonderful community that we live in.
We're doing the craft table. There's all sorts of, we have Sacred Heart ornaments and some Santa, cookies for Santa dishes.
And wreaths.
And the kids choir is doing rosary beads and rosary necklace, rosary bracelets.
Oh, this idea popped into my head years ago, and then I finally decided to turn it into a story and publish it. And it's all about 4 kids who look like lollipops, and they go out and play with their friends, they play indoors with their parents, they go to a festival, carnival, and it's really good for young children.
So all the parishioners will take a theme basket and they'll make a basket for us. We had one parishioner, she took about to gardening stuff and made a garden basket
different
for
themes.
us.
Yeah. And then you buy a sheet of tickets for $10 for 25 tickets, and you put it in the different baskets, whatever one you're interested in.
Well, Juliana is also an altar server, and she sings in the children's choir. She's very helpful. She likes to do a little bit of everything to help out.
A lot of the politicians come yesterday.
Yeah, they see that on the parish website, they notice that it's happening, and they see an opportunity to meet some of the voters, so they show up. A lot of them came last night.
Yeah.
Some may come today.
Oh, sorry.
An angel just got her wings.
I hope she realizes that we have a great community to support us and to help support our church, and we just have a bunch of great friends that come from the church, and it's great that we know that we have friends that we can rely on. We all kind of have a bond being in the church.
I love having the families come in, the children come in. You can see how happy the children are. Just seeing all the things that the young children have made too. Some of the homemade gifts.
I think it's great because our kids grow up with these, having these people in their lives and
friends.
Friends for life, yeah.
I hope everyone develops a strong sense of community and realizes how much fun it is to spend time with family and friends.
We meet all different, not just parishioners, but people from all different parts of the town come in.
Yeah.
Like yourself.
And now for the sports update. The number 1 seeded Lynn English Bulldogs boys soccer team's dream of a state championship came to an early end as the Bulldogs were knocked out of the playoffs by the number 16 seed Andover 3-1 at Manning Field on Tuesday. Andover got their first goal right before the half as Zoa Silva Landry scored after Anthony Previte found him on a cross pass through the box. Silva Landry will follow that goal with another goal 6 minutes into the second half to take a 2-0 lead. English will make it a 1-goal game after Chris Lazo scored after goalie Wilson Stretcher knocked the ball right to Lazo. Andover would put the game away with about 2 minutes left in the second half when Evan Arpine scored the Golden Warriors' 3rd goal of the game. English finishes the season at 14-1-2. The number 2 seeded Lynn Classical Rams also had an early exit in the state tournament as they fell to the number 15 seed Marblehead Magicians in the Division II North first-round matchup. The Magicians got things going early as Ryan Masters knocked in the first goal of the game early in the opening period to take a 1-0 lead. After a scoreless first half for the Rams, Jair Alvarez would tie the game up at 1-1 in the second half. The goal was Alvarez's first varsity goal. Marblehead would respond 16 seconds later as Cam Heffitz delivered a perfect shot that would put the Magicians up 2-1. The Rams end their season with a 13-4-2 record. St. Mary's Lady Spartans season came to an end in a 1-goal game against Manchester Essex at Joseph Highland Field. The lone goal came from Manchester Essex's Deza Hayes in the first half. The Lady Spartans could not capitalize on the scoring opportunities that they had in the second half as they could not muster up any offensive goals or any offensive momentum. St. Mary's season ends with a 10-7-2 record. In the MIAA football playoffs, only 2 of the 5 Lynn High School teams advanced to the second round. Lynn Tech pitched another shutout as they dominated Matanon 34-0 last Friday at Manning Field. The game was scoreless until midway through the second quarter after quarterback Luis Pinero scored on a 1-yard touchdown run. Haydar Badwai would follow that up with a 37-yard touchdown run to put Tech up 12-0. Miguel Soto would score on 2 touchdown receptions of 20 yards and 14 yards that extended the Tigers' lead to 20-0. Tech faces off against Keefe Tech tonight at 6 p.m. at Manning Field. Kip Academy had a dominant performance in their opening round game against Charlestown in the Division VIII North matchup. The Panthers routed Charlestown 35-6. Quarterback Piero Canales threw 2 touchdown passes in the game, and running back Daniel Olawasui rushed for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. The scoring for Kip Academy came in the first half, scoring on each of their first possessions in the first quarter to take a 22-0 lead after 1. Charlestown had no response for Kip's attack as they could not garner any offensive momentum. The Panthers' next opponent is Roxbury Charter this Saturday at Manning Field. Lynn Classical Rams put together a valiant effort in their 28-22 loss to Winchester at Knowlton Stadium. Classical trailing 28-22 with 3 minutes 5 seconds left in the game. The Rams had the ball and were marching into Winchester territory. Quarterback Daniel Gisono would be picked off by Winchester's Tommy Denan, which sealed the victory for the Sachems. Lynn English Bulldogs, for the second time in 3 years, were eliminated by Tewksbury after their 28-31 loss at Doucette Stadium. The Bulldogs got big performances from Matthias Fowler, Sam O'Fury, and Taj Purder. After being down 7-0, the Bulldogs would respond with a Fowler touchdown rush. Tewksbury's Richard Markworth would score on a 9-yard touchdown reception to take a 14-7 lead. Fowler and Purder would connect on an 85-yard touchdown reception to tie the game at 14. Tewksbury would take a 24-14 lead going into the half. After Tewksbury took a 31-14 lead in the second half, the Bulldogs would score 2 touchdowns. A Purder rushing touchdown and an O'Fury rushing touchdown made it a 3-point game. Tewksbury would recover the onside kick and would run out the clock for the victory. The St. Mary's Spartans fell to the number 2 seed Greater Lawrence 33-8 at Louis E. Gleason Coliseum. The young Spartans team were overmatched and had no offensive rhythm throughout the game. Greater Lawrence took a 20-0 lead to the half and never really were challenged with a comeback effort from the Spartans. On Thursday Night Football, the Oakland Raiders defeated the San Diego Chargers 26-24 in Oakland. The Raiders defense picked off Phillip Rivers 3 times and returned 1 for a touchdown. Defensive back Eric Harris had 2 of the 3 interceptions, 1 in which he took to the house. Quarterback Derek Carr threw for 218 yards and 1 touchdown. Rookie running back Josh Jacobs continues his stellar season as he rushed for 771 yards and a touchdown and also caught 3 passes for 30 yards. The Raiders are now 5-4 and will take on the Cincinnati Bengals on November 17th. The Boston Celtics have now won 6 in a row after their 108-87 victory over the Charlotte Hornets last night in Charlotte. In his return to Charlotte, Kemba Walker tallied 14 points and dished out 6 assists for the night. Jason Tatum led the team in scoring for the night with 23 points. Gordon Hayward added a double-double with 20 points and 10 rebounds. The Celtics travel to San Antonio as they take on the Spurs Saturday afternoon, then return home to take on the Dallas Mavericks on Monday. On this week's Lynn Lowdown, we sit down with Fran Smith. Here is this week's Lowdown. Hello and welcome to the Lynn Lowdown. Today, we got a special guest. She beat the traffic to get here. There was no traffic for her today. Community organizer for Community Change Inc., Ms. Fran Smith. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming here. You know, I saw Fran speaking a couple weeks ago at the Lynn Public Library for the Frederick Douglass event that Wendy Joseph was hosting, and I was like, let's get her on. She has quite the history with Frederick Douglass and community work and civil rights work, so it's only right that we got you in here to talk about all that. So let's talk about Community Change Inc. What got you involved with them?
So Community Change Inc. is a 52-year-old organization that was actually started by a man that didn't live too far from here in Wakefield, Horace Selden. And how I got involved was I was teaching at a private special needs school right out of college in the early 80s, and I know I look good. And there was some racial tension that was occurring among staff, and I had done a lot of work in my undergraduate studies looking at the history of race and class discrimination in public education, and so I basically approached the staff and suggested that we bring in somebody to help us with these issues, and the organization was Community Change, and I've been affiliated with them ever since. It's been like my watering hole. It's been a place where I could go and learn the history of structural racism. Mm-hmm. And actually, Horace started it as a result of the assassination of Dr. King and the unrest that had been occurring across the nation prior to that, and the Kerner Commission report, which was issued about 52 years ago, mm-hmm. that identified the social unrest and the movements in urban centers across the country based on structural racism, and identified the white problem. And so we're unique in that we have always been talking about the white problem and the structures, mm-hmm. the institutional structures that make it impossible for you and I to have equal access.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, from your speech, your work in civil rights, it stretches for a long time. I understand that you were part of the Boston busing during that time. And can you speak on some of the things you witnessed during that time?
Sure. So I actually grew up in Weymouth, which is a working class suburb then, mm-hmm. and I was part of a regional youth group, and there were 30 kids, and 19 of them were from Boston Public High Schools. And I was in that group from 1974 to 1977. And Judge Garrity ordered desegregation in 1974. I never call it busing because years later when I interned with the lawyers that represent the black plaintiffs, I found out that the Boston Public Schools had bused more black kids. Like if neighborhoods were integrating and you were in a white neighborhood, they would bus you to a black school. So I never used the term busing because it was never about buses. It was always about black parents trying to get what white parents already had for their kids, to make it simple. And black parents had started agitating for change in the city of Boston from the 1700s. And so in 1974, when Judge Garrity found for black parents 1700, 1800, 1900, so it's been a couple of hundred years that black parents were trying to get equal allocation of resources, right, for their students. The district would spend, say, $300 per pupil on supplies on white students and $50 on supplies for black students. In fact, Judge Garrity ordered 408 issues that had to be addressed as a result of purposely denying black and Latino kids the same access that white kids had. So those are some of the things that I learned. There was a lot of racial violence, and I would say that people can Google it, and you know, it was not a good time, and I didn't feel like adults in the religious community, because I was raised a Catholic, Italian Catholic, my faith was really important to me then, and like elected officials didn't stand up and say, you know what, this might be hard for us, but let's try and make it happen. So that was disappointing as a young person.
And was that one of the reasons that you decided to start doing what you do now, to be involved in the community, to be a community organizer, just so you can bring the change that you didn't see happen when you were growing up?
Yeah, that's a really good way of summarizing it. I think that one of the things, so the religious and the political elected leaders weren't very good at helping us figure this stuff out. Why were people so mad? Why was there so much hatred? Why was there so much resentment? But the regional student group that I was a part of, which was the Massachusetts Department of Education Bureau of Student Services, it was the Regional Student Advisory Council, and basically every high school has to send a representative to these regional councils, and then they have a state council, and then the chair of the state council is a full voting member, high school student, on our State Board of Education. So I learned that through agitation, through legislation, like a law was passed to create this thing called the Massachusetts Regional and State Student Advisory Council with a full voting member on the State Board of Education. I don't think we have, I don't know, we may have one or two students at the local level on school committee, but I don't think we have any voting members on school committee. And I think there's only one other state in the country, which is California, that has a full voting member. So the point is that they taught us really early that in a democracy, you actually have, there are tools and there are ways to impact public policy, and you can use your voice and your vote and the ability to organize with other people to bring about change. And so I feel like, I was born in '59, and a lot of folks in the '70s, they talked about us being an apathetic generation, but somehow I got the fever. And it really had to do with being, really quite honestly, friends with black and Latino kids who challenged me about what was going on and why my people, white people, would want to do that stuff. And I didn't get it. So anyway, I went off to college and studied it.
Yeah, and speaking of somebody who challenged the status quo, whatever, Frederick Douglass.
Yeah.
You spoke about Frederick Douglass, as I previously stated a few weeks ago at the Lynn Public Library. What was so important for you to just study Frederick Douglass and some of the changes that he wanted to see in society that got you interested in learning? Yeah.
So of course, I think I probably read the narrative, Frederick Douglass narrative, somehow in my past, but really Community Change Inc. Inspired me to learn more about Frederick Douglass. He delivered a speech want to say it was like 1880 something. The country was 76 years old. Anyway, it's the 4th of July speech. He was asked to come and talk about the 4th of July. And it was a 6-hour speech to the Rochester Anti-Slavery Society. And somebody from Community Change, basically, Jeanette Gillespie, I think her name was, she worked with us at the time. She took that and she broke it down into a speech, and we started reading it on the 4th of July. And so that speech is profound. They read it here too at the, what is the name of the tower here?
High Rock Tower.
High Rock Tower.
Yeah.
So the 3rd of July,
Yeah,
Wendy
Frederick
does a
Douglass
reading.
speech.
So one of the reasons that really, so I'm obsessed with Frederick Douglass,
Yeah.
and I've read that speech, and and then I did work with Mass Humanities about it. In fact, Mass Humanities is doing a video about reading Frederick Douglass because they've been funding it. So people have been reading Frederick Douglass's What of the 4th of July to me all over the country. I mean, all over the state. It's starting to spread. But Frederick Douglass understood that slavery, it wasn't enough just to legally abolish slavery. You had to also deal with the remnants of over 200 years of the myth of white superiority and black inferiority. And the speech that I gave was The Unfinished Business of Frederick Douglass in the 21st Century. He talked about white oppression and white oppressors and slave owners having a demented, is it a demented imagination? Oh no, a diseased imagination. Yep. And that he understood that you had to own, right, that slavery was morally, spiritually, intellectually wrong and evil, and that it was all about a profit for a small group of people. Yep. And so that's why I love Frederick Douglass, because he was fierce. He never compromised his values. He broke with abolitionists in Boston because they didn't see that. They believed slavery should be ended. Yep. But he also understood that you had to end slavery and you had to challenge white supremacy. And I suspect that if Frederick Douglass was with us today, he would be in favor of reparations.
Yes, he would. And with that note, our 10 minutes is up.
Oh my goodness,
see how fast
that's
see how fast that goes? Quickly, Friday, November 15th,
Dry Lonzo
Award ceremony will be had. If you want to go to it, they go to tinyurl.com, Dry Lonzo, or call 617-523-0555 for more information on that. Fran,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And you can come back anytime. You're always welcome here.
Okay.
And you guys have a great day. You guys been watching the Lynn Lowdown. Have a great one. And now time for some upcoming local events. Tonight from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m., the Washington Square residents will be holding its holiday dinner and auction fundraiser at the Knights of Columbus Hall on Linfield Street. There'll be hundreds of items for guests to bid on. All items were donated by Washington Square residents' supporters. On Saturday, November 9th, the Greater Lynn Photographic Association will hold its photography course on 564 Boston Street from 9 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. The course covers the various functions of digital cameras, interchangeable lenses from wide angle to telephoto, downloading images from camera to a computer for post-processing. The first annual Veterans Appreciation Mass and Breakfast will be held at the Knights of Columbus this Sunday from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. Mass begins at 9 a.m., followed by breakfast at 10:30. Veteran spouses and family are all invited. To RSVP for the breakfast, contact elito27@gmail.com. The 6th annual Massachusetts Elementary School Cross Country Championships will be held at Gannon Golf Course on Monday, November 11th. This will be an all-day event featuring runners from grades 1 through 5. All Massachusetts public, parochial, charter, and private elementary schools are eligible. Check-in is at 8 a.m. and the race begins at 9:30 a.m. November 11th is Veterans Day, and the City of Lynn will be holding its annual Veterans Day ceremony. This will be a ceremony honoring those who served. The ceremony begins at 10 a.m. and will go on until 11 a.m. LCTV's next Paramount film series will take place on Monday, November 11th. The movie choice for November will be Shaun of the Dead. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. Movie begins at 7 p.m. Free popcorn and beverages will be available. Thank you for watching the LCTV News. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit us at LynnTV.org to watch any show anytime on your computer, tablet, or phone. I'm Mukala Kabongo. Have a great day.